Welcome to Fearless Finances, where I try to take the fear out of your finances. I had so much fun with last week's stupid quote of the week that I would use that format to kick off today's topic. Really stupid quote. It's been floating around in my head for a good 3 weeks. I've been wanting to do this topic for that long, and I thought now was as good a time as any. So here comes that stupid quote. Recently, I was talking to a gentleman who's in his early 80s. We do the math on that one. He was born somewhere in the early 40s. Are you with me? And we were talking about stuff that's going on politically, and he's pretty progressively minded and really has been most of his life. And then I said, well, much of that has to do with patriarchy. Stupid quote coming. And his response to that was, oh, I wouldn't know anything about that. What? Now, granted, I know I couldn't say anything to him at the time. It wouldn't do any darn good. Even if I tried to explain how he had benefited much of his life from patriarchy, his dismissive tone indicated to me that he did not want to learn about that. And this was the other thought that occurred to me, simultaneous to all of that. He's been benefited by patriarchy his entire life. Now, I don't know what this man was like in his prime. I didn't know him then, but I do know his wife, who's a couple years older than him, tends to run circles around him intellectually. She also catches on to a whole lot of stuff that he just plainly misses because her strengths multifaceted. I mean, he's great with numbers, at least he appears to be. But even when I was there, I helped them with a household project that was pretty darn easy to fix. Now, again, I don't know what this man was like in his prime, but I can tell you if he had a career that was at higher levels of management, and he appeared to have, and much more than her, I would say he's benefited a lot by patriarchy. In fact, as I understand it, she used to work all day, come home and cook, do the dishes, and I'm not sure what he was doing. And the sad thing is, this continues to happen a lot. So, in this episode, we're going to take a peek at this interview. Pete Hegseth's pastor, our Secretary of Defense, Mr. Doug Wilson, and blow apart all of his fallacies about how men are so great, and that's how God wanted it. So, if you, like me, believe that patriarchy has ruined just about everything good, don't know if I need the qualifier there. I almost want to say everything good and does not reflect the real teachings of Jesus. Meet me on the other side.
The most noticeable things right out of the gate would be things that aren't going on anymore. We wouldn't have Clown World. We wouldn't have drag queen story hours. We wouldn't have pride parades. We wouldn't have abortion on demand. Those things would be gone.
Couple of thoughts, Doug, right out of the gate. The whole reason you care about drag queens or not is because you want to be able to immediately identify who everybody is so that you can put yourself on the top of the food chain. So that you can go, oh, that's a woman, or that's a man, or that's a black person, and then make sure all the white men are at the top. I don't remember Jesus ever saying anything about that. In fact, when he referenced eunuchs in Matthew 19:12, he's essentially telling everyone who's listening that they're also accepted, whether or not they were man-made or self-made. And for those of you unfamiliar with what a eunuch is it was a man who was made sterile or their gender was shifted. It's just so interesting to me that men like Doug ignore these very important teachings of Jesus. You see, when I look at the Bible, I look at everything through the lens of what Jesus said. The rest of it is subject to man-made bias. And before I even got involved in starting to do this video, I started thinking about some of the verses that are the most important. Many of the most revolutionary ones include women. In fact, Jesus's first miracle, when he made wine out of water, was at the request of his mother, honoring her. The woman at the well, the woman he stopped from being stoned, when Mary wanted to listen to his teachings and Martha was upset because there was so much work to be done, when Lazarus died and Mary and Martha came forward. There's so much. Oh, and the woman who gave her last pennies, or the woman who poured the perfume all over Jesus. Everywhere in the Gospels, women are elevated by Jesus. Everywhere. And yet this man thinks he's supposed to go around and decide what is Christian and not? Disgusting. Absolutely disgusting. By the way, Doug, Jesus never mentioned abortion. And if you really care about protecting people and babies, maybe you should start just listening to what women want and need. That'd be a good place to start. But let's hear what other stupid things he has to say.
So the thing that a lot of the people in the middle, let's call them normies, people who are not, they're not particularly theological, and they're not hard left either. They're just, I just want to live a normal life. Is that so wrong? The last 5 years has really unsettled them a great deal because clown world is not a livable place to bring up kids. It's just not.
For your opinion, Doug. But there's a lot of people in the middle who'd like you to shut up. There's a lot of people in the middle who try to love everybody. And they don't want to hear your hate because that's what it is. It is not clown world. It is people expressing themselves. And the reason it's so upsetting to you is because it shakes your power core. You think apparently the only way you can keep your power is by putting other people down and acting like they're clownish if they don't follow your rules. I don't remember Jesus saying anything like that. In fact, what I remember him saying quite a bit, his harshest words, were reserved for people like you, the religious elite, who were twisting the rules to put themselves on top and give themselves power. He told you there were 2 commandments because all else flows from those. Love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your soul, and with all your mind, and to love your neighbor as yourself. How in the world is your clown world philosophy doing either one of those? God created all of those people in clown world, Doug, just like you were created, Doug. And you're not loved any more or less than all of those other people in the middle, or not dressing the way you like, or having abortions on demand, or being raped by people in your church. The love and grace and mercy of our Creator is bestowed on all of us. Yet your teachings don't really reflect the depth of that love.
The attention we're getting is people are hungry for answers that don't just whitewash it, that don't sugarcoat it. And as I'm fond of saying, it's Christ or chaos.
Chaos, Doug? That's what you're trying to tell us? That you offer Christ from the chaos? That's it? Really? And you're on Team Trump? You have to be freaking kidding me. Point 1, it's pretty evident that Trump is the furthest thing from Christ. He's cruel and he creates chaos. The levels of insanity that any of you Christian nationalists need to go through to arrive at your doctrine is beyond belief. But don't you worry, the love of the universe will win, because the Great Spirit is working toward unity. And that's not what you're doing.
It's COVID, right?
Yes. Since 2019, our church community here has doubled in size. And during the height of COVID, it was like a refugee column, people moving here, chased here by blue state governors, chased here by COVID restrictions. chased here by pastors and elders who flaked on them, who closed their church down, and people. A lot of Christians were discovering that they did not have the Christian leadership that they thought they had.
I know that COVID shook it up for a lot of people, but your government was trying to help protect you. And people like Doug and their message that those protections were harmful to you are actually harmful. Right now, as I'm recording this, many well-trained medical professionals have left our CDC, our Centers of Disease Control. This ensures people will die. Just yesterday in Minneapolis, another gunman shot down babies, this time in a church attached to a school. And instead of men like Doug doing anything so that the government protects us from this, they continue to spread lies, disinformation, and scare people so that more people die. What I effectively would like to do is create a bumper sticker that says Republicans are serial killers. We have enough information now to know that all of their disinformation and policy changes and illegal activities that are taking away funding from the areas that Americans need are killing people. Doug is no different. This is how harmful patriarchy is. You don't have to live in Iran or be part of countries that come right out and say women are cattle to recognize that patriarchy is harmful here.
You are a Christian and you want this nation to be a Christian nation.
Yeah, I'm a Christian and I'm an American who loves this country. So put those two things together. And since I believe that my Christianity is not something that is to be believed by me behind my eyes and between my ears, it's a public truth.
What do you say to people of different faiths all over the world who don't believe that and have a different God, a different understanding of life and how we all came here?
Yeah, I would say let's have a Bible study. Let's talk about it. Depending on what they've heard, I would want to assure them that the fact that we differ over who God is or differ over ultimate reality does not give me warrant to persecute you. So we're going to talk about this because the Christian faith does not advance by the sword. The Christian faith advances by preaching, the sword of the Spirit, planting churches, preaching, declaring, etc. So I'd want to visit with them.
Most of what he just said before that indicate that he did not feel that way, that all those other clown people are wrong. If he really cares about sitting down and having conversations with people, sit down and have those conversations, Doug. It's free country. We got the First Amendment for a reason. It allows you to practice your religion and talk about it in the way that you'd like. You don't have to pass laws and take over the country in order to do that. But somehow, sir, that's what you think you should do. And somehow, I don't remember Jesus doing that. Jesus didn't go up to the Romans and tell them that they needed to start doing this different and started to try to take over the country. That is not what Jesus did. And in fact, he fought so much against that philosophy that even his disciples, the original apostles, were like, what? We thought you were going to go to war and save us. Doug, read your frickin' Bible. And you know what? When you're talking about this spirit, it's that spirit to reveal to you the love that you could share with everyone. Do you really think God gives two rips what someone wears for their clothing and how acceptable you might find it? Or if I am transgender and I transition, you think God loves me any less? And do you know what, Doug? You and all the other people like you are causing hardship on people who have already suffered enough difficulty. So, have you ever thought that maybe God intentionally made them trans so you could learn to love better. Did you ever think that, Doug? Because I think you should. Back to more stupidity.
What would you say to historic scholars who say America was not founded as a Christian nation?
I would have fun with them.
Don't you think if the framers had the same vision as you, that this is a Christian nation, that they would have made that explicit in the Constitution and not have put in the Establishment Clause and the prohibition of religious tests for office holders, that they would have made it explicit in the documents?
The federal government may not have a Church of the United States. Like the Church of England, the Church of Denmark is the Lutheran Church. They have flat prohibited a Church of the United States, and they flat prohibited religious tests for office at the federal level.
Thomas Jefferson, for his part, was a big proponent of religious liberty. Right. It was one of his big accomplishments. Yeah. It's on his gravestone that he had this religious liberty law passed in Virginia.
Yeah.
So what would you say to historic scholars who would point to that and say, the framers of this country did not mean for this to be a Christian nation. They meant for it to be a nation where people can exercise their religion freely, no matter what that religion is?
First, I would invite these historic scholars in the most friendly way possible to have a public debate on the subject. I think I don't want to. King Ahab in the Old Testament says, let not him who puts on his armor boast like him who takes it off. But I think I would do okay.
Not up for debate, Doug. I'm really sorry. But they knew how to spell Christian, and they knew how to spell nation. And if they intended it to be a Christian nation, they would have put it in there. It's not up for debate. It's not. You want to build a country like that? Go. Go. Why don't y'all just take all your red states and go away? Go. Leave us alone. Create your own damn nation. Adios, amigo. See you later. This was the other thing. They wouldn't win that debate, or however he said it at first. Of course, not stating a fact, right? Just some intimidating stance. And I don't know about you, but this dude has creepy eyes. I was talking to a friend about that yesterday. You know who else has creepy eyes? Stephen Miller. I don't think either of these men are possessed by God. Creepy eyes indicate something else, something not good. Let's hear what more stupidity he has to say.
And I think I would do okay because I'd be able to point to the primary documents as well.
How would a Muslim or a Mormon or even a Catholic fit into your version of a Christian nation?
Yeah. So one of the reasons we have such problems with assimilating Muslims and all these different Hindus is that there are so many of them, right? So if we had a Christian republic and a Muslim came to Disneyland with his family, we have no problems. But when they fill up Dearborn, Michigan, that's just not, you can, it says in Amos 3:3, can two walk together except they be agreed? You cannot put alien worldviews together, cheek by jowl, and have peace, right? So basically, I think a lot of the religious turmoil that we have, the clashes that we would have, could be addressed by a sane immigration policy, not a policy that tries to regulate what people can say or do in their religious convictions while here.
So the foundation for you is you believe this is a Christian nation, right, despite the debate from historic scholars.
Exactly. But notice that when the Muslim says to me,
he's disgusting. I'm not going to give his hate speech any more airtime. There's just another section in here that I want to get to that really illustrates the stupidity. Oh my God. And his whole cheek to cheek thing. Well, then just get along, Doug. Get along. Be kind. Be gracious. Do what Jesus told you. Love your neighbor as yourself. And he defined your neighbor in the Good Samaritan as people who are different than you. You are unreal. And you know what? Unholy. You are unholy, Doug. I'm calling it out. God help us. If this is the type of person who is leading our churches, God help us. Unbelievable. Listens to this nonsense.
You have a patriarchal view of how society should be.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah, there's certain places that ought to be male only spaces, and combat is one of them. And being closed up in a submarine is another one. So what it boils down to is that sort of thing.
What? What? Why should only men be in submarines? I don't know. Maybe tinier females would be better. You're dumb. Let me just give you a clue there, Doug. I would not have the brain capacity that I do that potentially runs circles around you if that wasn't God given. You see, God gave me these capabilities, these talents, because God wanted me to use them to further the goodness in the kingdom. And being under a man like you would not allow that. You're very wrong, Doug. And your beliefs are hurting the world in more ways than one, because all of the goodness that's trapped inside of trans people and gay people and Muslim people and female people don't get out into the world to do God's will with patriarchy at the helm. You're stifling God's will. Now, there's been plenty of stupid quotes in here, hasn't there? Oh, so many. But the icing on the cake, the little cherry on top, the stupidest of all quote, well, that's right around the corner. Hold on. We'll get there.
Egalitarianism has been the basic platform, and feminism is a subset of egalitarianism, and you can't split the difference on this sort of thing. So if you're going to have a submarine, you have to make a decision who's going to be on it, right? And either the secular egalitarian worldview will prevail, or a patriarchal Christian worldview will prevail, or a patriarchal Muslim view. Somebody's going to have to decide.
Excuse me, Doug? There are some Christian views that are not patriarchal. You see, I don't view Jesus as being patriarchal at all. He empowered women everywhere he could. And I firmly believe that Mary Magdalene was either his spouse and not recognized by the church, or one of his apostles. And Mary, who was at his feet when Martha was upset, was acting as a disciple, which was disallowed back then, but Jesus stood up and encouraged it. Doug, you've lost your mind and you've lost your way. I'll pray for you.
But bottom line, do you believe men and women are equal in society?
Well, they are in our society, but they're not equal in the world.
What do you mean by that?
Because men and women are different.
I just want to interject here. He said men and women are equal in our society. No, there's laws that protect women, but we are not equal, Doug. And we're not equal because of men like you. And you know what? We're not equal because of men who think that they're liberated, but are not. A little bit like my 80-year-old friend who said, I don't know anything about patriarchy, in a dismissive tone, didn't want to learn because he benefits by it and doesn't really want to think about it. And I also have to add that there's plenty of women who have fallen for the deceit that they are equal and don't recognize patriarchy for what it is and how it's all around us all the time. But we're getting close to the really stupid quote.
What do you mean by that?
Because men and women are different. They're just different. When I said I don't want women in combat, it's not an arbitrary rule. It's not like we want the women to stand on this side of the room and the men to stand on that side. There's certain things that men do better than women do. There's certain things that women do better than the men do. And I think we should let scripture and natural revelation tell us which is which. Men are good at smashing and breaking things. They're good at fighting. And when you have this egalitarian dogma that women and men have to be the same, what happens is it's like saying everybody has to be able to dunk the basketball. If you've got an egalitarian dogma that says everyone has to be able to dunk, the only thing you're going to wind up doing is lowering the net.
OMG, I completely forgot how many stupid quotes there are in here. But you know what, Doug? You're right about something. It only means we lower the net. You know what's been happening in the world because of patriarchy and stupidity like yours? We've all had to cater to mediocre men, your little fragile egos. We can't stand up against you because, gosh darn it hurts your feelings. And so we all have to sit around and go, oh, I'm sorry, Doug, but I think maybe those numbers are wrong. Instead of saying, hey, Doug, you got that wrong. Because you can't take that kind of information straight up from a woman. Now, if you're looking for some good reading, I highly suggest this help you and the men in your congregation figure out who should be on that submarine. Because you know what? We don't need to have any hard and fast rules. We can just go with whoever's the most competent. That could be a trans person. That could be a female person. That could be a Muslim person. Could be anybody. And you know what? I think that way we end up getting the best people instead of having to cater to mediocre men. Doug and the men in his congregation, and you know what? The people in the Trump administration, they are the reason this book was written. It is so good. I'll make sure I'll put a reference to it down in the doobly-doo. I might just get this on audio and take it on my walk tonight. Because this is the thing. We need to stop catering to mediocre men. We need to stop bowing to their fear, their polarization, and their problem. Because this is their problem. It's not our problem. And when all of this comes to bear, we will build a better nation. I promise you that. But more about that later. Let's try to finally get to the most stupid quote of all.
Our viewers might hear that and think he wants to turn this into a totalitarian, patriarchal society. He wants to turn America into Gilead with handmaids.
Right.
What do you say to that?
What I want to do is keep women out of submarines, which is not totalitarianism.
That's one example.
Right. It's you've got to decide which way you're going to go. So, for example, when you send Bruno into shower with the junior high girls, and you force that on them, and you arrest parents who protest at the school board meeting, I would call that totalitarian.
In the showers with the girls, Doug. God help us. And yes, you are supporting totalitarian because you think you have a better idea than everyone else, instead of collaborating with everyone else and figuring out the best idea. Oh, and I'll also say your analogies are dumb. You seriously sit on a pulpit and you speak to people all the time and you can't more readily just come up with good responses to her questions? Why would anyone listen to this man? We really need to get past male mediocrity.
So I'm a woman sitting across from you. Do you view me as an equal? Working mom, leaving the home and
Sure.
Okay.
I don't believe you, Doug. That little bite in your chin, that's a tell. You know you can't say what you really think. It's not okay for women to go out and work outside the home. You want an indentured servant. You want somebody at home doing all the work. Your little bite in your cheek, that's a tell, Doug. That's a tell.
But when I go into work, he has the right to tell me what to do, and I don't have the right to tell him what to do. So
That's a dynamic you see in marriage.
within the confines of marriage, the husband is the head, the wife is submissive, his helpmeet. And when you enter into this, it's a believing Christian man and a believing Christian woman, both of whom want that arrangement.
So let's understand this a little bit better, Doug. So since you want everybody to be part of this Christian nation, anybody who gets married has to submit to your little rule. Good God Almighty.
What role do you think women play in society?
Women are the kind of people that people come out of.
So you just think they're meant to have babies?
Okay, I know things look a little different here. I was just editing some of this video and I realized that some of the content didn't come out right. And so I thought, you know what? I will just pop in here and re-record some of those parts. But did you notice that Doug gave us his tell again? He bit his cheek.
The kind of people that people come out of.
You see that right there? That's Doug's tell. And normally I wouldn't take up so much of the screen, but I want to be bigger than him. Because I am. I want you to see her expression.
The kind of people that people come out of.
Crazy. How demeaning. That, Doug, is misogyny. You think that you're better. And this is a thing that I think is just so ridiculous about it. When it comes to actually having children, I think that the female role takes a little bit more effort. What? I don't even understand the logic. By the way, that happens to be our stupidest quote of all. It doesn't even make sense. Clearly, Doug, the female role in bearing children is a lot more work and effort than the male role. Wow.
So you just think they're meant to have babies. That's
Well,
it. They're just a vessel.
No, it doesn't take any talent to simply reproduce biologically. The wife and mother, who is the chief executive of the home, is entrusted with.
He's just going to go on with more stupidity. How he thinks that women are just supposed to do whatever he thinks they're supposed to do. That's stupid, Doug. And it actually doesn't reflect biblical philosophy. Sometimes people in the church claim that there's supposed to be patriarchy because a two-headed snake doesn't know where to go, but they forget that they're practicing a religion that is based on a triune God. 3, working in concert together. Now, somebody like Doug would call this the Father, the Son, and the Holy Ghost, right? Somebody like me would take the patriarchy out of that and say creator, redeemer, and sustainer. And these 3 entities work together in concert and show us the way, which, by the way, that's what early Christians were called, or called their philosophy, the way. But this triune God shows us the way that this marriage should work. 2 people working in concert together, fully respecting and allowing everyone's autonomy. Doug, you're wrong. And the people who follow you and believe what you say are being misled. And I'll also tell you that there's lots of things out there that are giving me hope. In fact, I just recently watched this.
And my view is if you think this is going to be over in 3 years when Donald Trump leaves office, you're naive. That these historical tides, once they get going, they just keep going until they're stopped. And so what strikes me is, why are we not stopping it? And so the people I'd salute this week are Lisa Cook and Susan Menares.
Susan Menares from the CDC.
From the CDC, who are resisting. And I had a Democratic politician call me up today and said, where's the head of the universities? Where are the law firms? Where are the corporate CEOs? These 3 people have guts. And they're not just leaving the office. They're just going to stay there and resist. We should be having a mass coalition of people who are willing to resist together, because it's really hard to resist alone. And so at least we're seeing some pushback this week.
The woman next to him is Kimberly Atkins, and she's on Sisters-in-Law, a podcast that I love listening to. She's going to share some profound things too, but this is the sliver of hope. Did you notice he mentioned women were standing up and resisting? And not that men aren't. Men definitely are. But women have taken key roles to push back and resist. This patriarchy nonsense is going to come to an end. I know I'm not going down without a fight. And this is the thing. Men like Doug are the ones who are most harmed by it. I know it doesn't seem that way, but they are. They are not able to live life to its fullest because they're pushing other people down instead of letting everyone rise and blossom. We should be listening more to people, not telling them what they're supposed to do. That's what patriarchy does. And patriarchy is a lost cause. Back to the other footage. By the way, I even fast forwarded a little bit, and she asked him about sexual harassment in the church and Pete Hegseth's sexual indiscretions and the fact that he even paid somebody off for having sexually assaulted them, which, of course, in typical patriarchal style, he handily dismissed. You see, women are just vessels for the pleasure of men. Now, granted, after he said something so stupid, as women are the kind of people that people come out of, he said that they're entrusted with souls and all of this. But the only real reason patriarchy gets any traction is men are willing to force themselves, and I do mean that word, force themselves and their beliefs on other people. Not that women can't be guilty of that too, but we tend to listen to people more, and maybe it's because of patriarchy that we do. And Doug, I might just tell you and Trump and all the rest of the nonsense that maybe you should start listening a little bit more and talking a little less. Thanks for stopping by for the stupid quote of the week and my discussion on patriarchy and some of my thoughts about biblical references. If you'd like to have more discussions like this come up in your YouTube, I encourage you to subscribe. I am almost monetized and you can help me. If you like this video, it'll surely get out to other people. And do me a favor, if you've heard a stupid quote this week, note it below. Let's chat a bit. And I've locked and loaded a couple other videos right there that I think might interest you. If you click one of them, I'll see you soon.
What role do you think women play in society?
Women are the kind of people that people come out of.
So you just think they're meant to have babies?